Today we're going to be looking at OCD and parenthood, and specifically, we're going to be talking about how it can impact something as fundamental as the parent-child relationship. Actress Tuppence Middleton.
Okay.
She's been incredibly open and candid about her own journey with OCD as a mother and some of the challenges that she's faced.
Yeah, and it's so important for people to speak out about this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, especially with mental health. I think it's one of those things that still, a lot of people are dealing with it.
Absolutely.
But not enough people are talking about it. And so when someone like her comes out and says, hey, I struggle with this, it makes it so much easier for other people to say, oh, me too.
She talks about how she has really intense struggles with contamination fears, like to the point where it even prevents her from physically comforting her daughter when her daughter is ill. She even kind of went so far as to refer to herself as a selfish mother.
Oh, wow.
Because of this. And so I'm curious to kind of get your take on that.
I think, as heartbreaking as it is to hear her say that, I think it really speaks to a lot of the challenges that parents with OCD face.
Right.
And this idea of selfishness, I think, is really interesting because it's not selfishness in the way that we traditionally think about it.
Like her values are like, I want to be there for my daughter. I want to nurture her. I want to care for her. But then the OCD saying, but contamination, but germs, but it's like there's this constant battle going on.
But when you have OCD and those fears are so strong, it can be so hard to overcome them.
And I think this is a good point to kind of maybe step back for a second for some of our listeners who might not be as familiar with OCD.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of have this image of OCD as being like, someone who just likes things to be really organized or maybe a little bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah, I think that's a very common misconception. So, when we talk about OCD, we're talking about a mental health condition that's characterized by these intrusive and unwanted thoughts, which we call obsessions. And these obsessions can be about anything, but they tend to trigger really intense anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
And then to try and manage that anxiety, people with OCD will often engage in these repetitive behaviors or mental acts, which are called compulsions.
So it's not just like, oh, I like my desk to be neat. It's more like, I have this thought in my head that's causing me so much stress and anxiety that I need to do this thing to try and make it go away.
That's a really good way to put it.
Okay.
And, it can be so much more debilitating than just, liking things to be a certain way.
Right. And so going back to Tuppence Middleton's situation, and I think a lot of parents who deal with OCD, what are some maybe less obvious ways that OCD might show up?
Well, one of the things that we see a lot is this fear of harm coming to the child.
Oh, wow.
So a parent might be constantly worried that their child is going to get hurt or sick. And this might lead them to do things like check on their child excessively, or restrict their activities, or even engage in a lot of cleaning and safety rituals, even when it's, clearly causing distress.
And I imagine that can create a lot of tension.
Oh, absolutely.
In the relationship as well, because, the child might be thinking, why is my mom or dad so overprotective?
Yeah.
Or, why are they making me do all these things? And the parent might feel like they're trapped. Right. And I think this is why what Tuppence Middleton is doing is so important. Because by being so open about her struggles, she's helping to destigmatize OCD.
OCD doesn't just affect the individual.
Right.
It affects the entire family system.
Yeah, it's not just happening in isolation. I think the key takeaway here is that, OCD is so much more than just being quirky or organized. It's a complex mental health condition that can have, really, really profound effects on people's lives, especially when it comes to parenting. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yeah.
As you go about your day, I want you to just kind of sit with this question.
Okay.
How might a deeper understanding of OCD, beyond those stereotypes that we often hear, influence how we approach and support those living with it? In our own families, in our communities, in our workplaces.
That's a really good question.
It's something to think about, right?
Yeah.
Until next time.